Yeah.
All right, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get the level of energy in the room up. We have a lot of people moving into from the other part of the conference.
There's guys who's standing there, there's more space in the center.
There is a lot of space in the center for sure, yeah. I'm not sure what qualifies me to do this panel, whether that's us being sponsors in DLD or, you know, being sponsors of Flash with the last 50 million round. For sure, DLD was a bit cheaper than 50 million. Not to say anything wrong about it. But guys, let's sort of start to warm up. You telling few things about, you know, amazing companies that you run, just so we are all in a good context. Patrick.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Studener. I oversee Bird in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Our company was founded in 2017, summer 2017. I'm not the founder, as Alessia said. Our founder is Travis van der Zen, who lives in LA with his wife and his children. And
you have founded this in Europe.
In Europe, yes.
Incredible to say that.
And so what we did over the last year and a half is sort of pioneer the shared electric scooter concept, or shared electric step scooter if you are from different European companies, so standing up scooters. And what we've seen in the last year and a half is really a great adoption of people using them in over 120 cities that we're operating in today. And yeah, so we moved from a small sort of handful of people in LA a year and a half ago to now, I think, over 800 employees across the world.
Amazing, amazing. Lukasz, after, you know, delivering pizzas in Germany and 31 other country, what brought you to micromobility?
Yeah, so I started with delivering T-shirts, moved on to delivering pizzas, and then I wasn't sure, like, is this now an upgrade, downgrade, I'm going sideways. So I started to look at like mobility, first at aviation. I did a few investments there, like screened the market, learned a lot, and got excited about the future of mobility. I'm now one of the founders of Flash, which attacks the field of micromobility. So aviation is like quite challenging. It's a big step of evolution from e-commerce and marketplaces to something complex as like designing vehicles.
Which countries you operate in?
Which one?
Flash.
Flash. Oh, so like we're just about to launch. Like we launch across Europe, and yeah. So like when in beta test, you can beta test us like today in either Zurich or Lisbon, maybe even Madrid. I'm not sure about that. Like but those three. And you have to look for "this is not a scooter," and then you will find our like stealth beta test there.
Excellent, excellent. Listen, also from the investor perspective, I have to say that last year, certainly scooter companies are one of the hottest, you know, trend in the world, and for the good reason. You know, the growth of the revenue, of the adoption of the users was absolutely, you know, unprecedented. And also, you know, for some companies, the growth in valuation was, you know, following. But Patrick, can you tell us, you know, for those who maybe have not yet used scooters that much, right? What excites all of your users around the world to use it? Why it is growing so fast?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we've certainly seen a big interest in the space. I think if we take a step back and start with the problem, I think everyone is sort of, you know, painfully aware of global warming, and I think more, you know, closer to home. I think a lot of us probably here in the audience live in larger cities, and almost every city we're in, cities are dealing more and more congestion, and it's taking longer and longer to get to work in the mornings and in the evenings, getting back home. And also we see sort of air pollution going up and up. And what I'm really sort of encouraged by is that what we've certainly seen in the last couple of years is also people becoming much more conscious and deliberate with how they spend their money, how they act, and the impact or the carbon footprint they have. And that goes from everything to people starting to look on the back of the box and wondering where are the eggs coming from that I'm buying in the supermarket, to now almost sort of like picking up the car and looking on the back of the box and realizing that the car is actually quite sort of quite a big piece of machinery that clogs up the streets, and also quite a polluting piece of machinery. And there, I think, what we've seen over the last couple of years is this trend of what are different alternatives away from the car. And so we're certainly not the first alternative to the car. We've seen, a lot of cities like beef up their public transportation services, putting in a lot of infrastructure for bicycle lanes. And so I think now the timing is right to also start putting more and more solutions into that infrastructure that cities have already built. And what's exciting for me is I see more and more mayors and city planners actually no longer referring to sort of car lanes and bicycle lanes, but rather to sort of fast vehicle lanes and slow vehicle lanes, because obviously if you call it a bicycle lane, there's not much else than a bicycle that can go in there. And I think that together with sort of the adoption of mobile phones and it just sort of everything being at the push of a button has really culminated in the product market fit that we've seen last year with us sort of rolling out shared scooters in the first couple of cities and this mass adoption rolling in. And what we've also seen sort of following that is obviously more and more countries wanting that, more and more companies starting up in different countries around the world and continents. And I think all those things sort of combined together have gotten that push. But I think it started with the problem being there's just too many cars on the road, and air quality is getting worse and worse, and this being a solution.
As simple as that, perhaps, right? I mean, to build on that, as one of my colleagues from Andreessen Horowitz wrote, just recently, is that perhaps scooters could be, for mobility industry, what Google search was, for internet, and that brings the conversation to completely different level. Not talking about whatever, small bikes or scooters, but platforms of mobility of the next generation. So, Lukasz, you are known to be kind of the visionary of the German tech scene, also with your investments in the flying cars. How do you see this evolving potentially for us here in Europe?
No, first of all, it's super exciting, and I don't know what is it's so exciting, I don't even know where to start, almost. But the product market fit is amazing and astounding, and a whole new category has been invented, the category of micro mobility. And before, when we've been, or we still speak of about e-mobility. Most people have oh, this is the electric car, the shared car, and and autonomous, and all of that. But it's really the invention of micromobility as a category. And this is when I said our stealth is this is not a scooter. I think it's not about scooters. I think scooter is just the first vehicle that we stumbled upon, probably not that you, but sort of found this product market fit. But it's really just the first vehicle in a small fleet of vehicles in this category of micromobility. And so we will see, to your question, we will see the cities a significant amount of traffic, everything that is I don't know, 0 to 10 kilometers will be covered by micromobility and a small fleet. Of vehicles. But then on the other hand, we have what I said at the beginning, aviation. So the e-mobility revolution is also an aviation revolution, and for the first time we're going to see personal aviation as a service. So basically the flying car or the flying taxi or however it's going to be called. So basically the city of the future has some of the lanes are converted to micromobility, and some of the roofs of either a gas station or an S-Bahn station or whatever have small pads, landing pads, for autonomous or semi-autonomous aviation traffic that then brings you to the airport, or the distance is 10 to 20 kilometers or between the hubs basically. So you have.
So we would perhaps go from here on the scooter to the next launch pod, and from there with the with this personal taxi to the airport, flying, of course.
Yeah, or to another pad, right? And then for the last mile, there again on a scooter, or not a scooter, a micro mobility vehicle. And one of these small fleets of micro mobility vehicle will probably look relatively close to what we know today as a scooter, but with a couple of others.
Yeah, but I guess, for those people sitting in this room, one of the questions perhaps that is arising when you're talking about it, but what about regulation, right? When it would be allowed, would it be allowed in Europe, or maybe, in Dubai first, as one of my friends here said, and not in Europe? Patrick, I wonder, you are already, on the streets, right? Looking at the very practical KPIs, right? How, your scooters are influencing, the dynamics of the city transport, and perhaps you are talking to municipalities and regulators delivering them this evidence, right? Can you share more about what it is and how convincing it is for everyone to allow more micromobility?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as a company, we're obviously only a year and a half in, so there's only limited amount of data, but there is already some interesting data points. I mean, I think again, if we go back to the sort of the really scary facts are there's almost 1 billion cars around the world, and every year about 80 to 90 million more cars are being sold, which is just not sustainable. And if you look at any city in the world, the rate of cars that enter and exit the city every day is
How many scooters we already have deployed, like across all the companies? Do you know it?
Across all the companies, probably I would say less than 100,000. So probably less than any city, a fraction of what any city in the world has.
So 80 million versus less than 100,000.
Yeah, but 80 million is just every year. But either way, but what's interesting is, and also remember, like there is going to be this element where these things take time, right? You're not going to put 100 scooters into a city and that same day 100 people are going to sell their car. It's not going to happen. Like behavior changes take time. People are very sort of accustomed to driving their car and they have to get accustomed to new alternatives. But what's interesting to see is we did an independent IFOP study in Paris after the first sort of 4 months of operating there. And it was really interesting to see that 71% of the people surveyed who had taken Bird in Paris said that they were using the scooter as an alternative to a car for the same route. And then I thought the other thing that was really interesting was that 1 in 3 of those trips started or ended at a metro station. So people are kind of using it to or from the metro station. And that's really sort of the really interesting thing is like how can these new alternatives connect with existing public transportation services? Because what we end up seeing is if you live 1 or 2 kilometers away from the nearest subway station, you're not going to drive 1 or 2 kilometers there in your car and then drive the subway 6 kilometers into the city. You're just going to drive the whole way in the car because it's just more convenient. And so all these alternatives have to work neatly together and also be affordable and convenient because if not, people will just default back to what they know, which is the car. So the idea is that as Lukasz said, the scooter is just one alternative. There's bicycles already. There'll be flying cars. All these things together, though, hopefully will tip the balance away from the personal vehicle and cause that change. And that will hopefully declog some of the cities, create more space, speed things up again, and then hopefully also reduce sort of the emission levels.
That makes perfect sense. And I guess, there are also a lot of kind of small practical challenges, like, when you're driving the scooter and you want to point to sort of the right-hand side, I'm going to turn there. It makes yourself a bit shaky. It's a bit more difficult. Would be great if there would be, a light sort of showing to other people in traffic where you're going. I know Lukasz Flash is working a lot on how the product should look like to be very sort of friendly and responsible. Can you talk a bit more about that?
So specific to the point that you said, like we had our engineers, like they found an amazing thing. If you widen the handlebar, you have more stability. So this is
very simple and practical.
Very simple and practical. So because they used to be very narrow, yeah. And those vehicles just have not been designed for sharing. They have been designed as a consumer product and more or less as a toy. And Bird basically hacked those, and then others followed Bird and hacked those consumer products and put them on the street. And now there's like this land grab. But it's like all about the various features, yeah. So be it like safety or comfort, durability. So also one thing, I think one blog said it's the best kept secret of the early micromobility players. Like what the half lifetime of these vehicles is. It's not very long, yeah. So it also does not make it like very environmentally friendly per se. Like at least in this early iteration. So it's durability and then it's operations costs. Yeah?
With what you have already today, in terms of safety, like helmets, making sure that people are not riding, the pedestrian routes. How can you control it with your software already, or it's still yet to come?
You can geofence the speed, for example. Yeah? That's what you can do.
Got it. I mean, I'm curious to ask about Germany more specifically, right? Given that we are in Munich today and there is, preparation of the new law coming in, do you have any particular I don't know, wishes or considerations that you would love to share with the German, regulators in terms of how would you suggest, to go about this?
Me?
Patrick, please.
Yeah, look, I think, every country right now, laws generally only get written once they're needed. So I think right now, as scooters are coming to Europe and into different countries, you can see a big disconnect between countries that were ready for this and countries that weren't ready for this. Also, some countries haven't sort of updated their traffic code since, for 30, 40 years. I think for Germany specifically, Germany is right now at the national level working on updating traffic regulations to sort of incorporate or create the box for the scooter. So there's like a box for a car, for a truck, for a motorcycle. But currently, if you're standing on an electric scooter, it just doesn't really exist. Now, I guess my wish would be that the regulation that they envision is hopefully sort of a holistic approach rather than trying to take the existing car regulations and just adding an appendix or 1 or 2 sentences at the end. And sometimes I do fear that there's a disconnect if you try to rush these things through, and also often a disconnect between the people that are writing the rules and the laws and the people that are actually using the products. Because I think, we've generationally seen a shift. I think if you look at, probably my parents' generation, or probably even sort of our generation still, it was like you turn 18 and you get a driver's license, sort of like one of the first things you do. That's not really the case anymore now. And there's probably a ton of people who are turning 18 right now who may never choose to have a car driver's license. So when I see some nations come out with suggestions like, okay, you can drive an electric scooter, but to drive it, you need to have a car driver's license, then I see that there's a disconnect, because effectively what you're saying is in Germany, you have to spend 2,000 to 4,000 euros to get a car driver's license to then have the privilege to not drive a car, right? Which is sort of a logical disconnect. So, and so I would just love for people to really try to not to, I do want people to move fast and give us clarity, because to your point earlier about safety, I think it should be very clear, these things don't belong on the sidewalk, they belong on the bicycle or in the slow vehicle lane. And people should wear helmets and all these things. But I think it's very important that we, don't over-regulate or put in regulations that, are nonsensical, like what I just said about the driver's license. I think if we do that, then I think we're going to be in a really healthy place. And what, we'll have to wait and see what Germany comes out with in the coming weeks and months. But what gives me sort of, optimism is you see countries like Finland, they've revamped things, and they've actually left it quite loose so that the transport ministry can interpret for all these new alternatives that are coming. You see countries like Israel who 1 or 2 years ago completely revamped it. It's just very simple. If the thing drives below 25 kilometers an hour, you're over 16 and you wear a helmet, you belong in the bicycle lane, and it's very clear and simple. And so I just love for that clarity to come to Germany as well, because there's, I think, over 15 cities in Germany with over 500,000 people that are trying to people are trying to get to and from work every day. So we need to get those people from A to B. You look at this regulation with optimism and courage, I guess. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You want to add something on this point, Lukasz?
Yeah, I think regulation should be differentiated and take technology into account. Yeah, for example, speed limits could be different, geofence, and if your vehicle can do something, then it could be reflected. Yeah, bike lane maybe could be this speed, pavement or sidewalk could be that speed. So it's perfectly fine to go with a micromobility device on a sidewalk next to pedestrians, but only not fast. Yeah? If you go only 5 kilometers an hour, it's fine. You're barely faster than walking. That, would be one example. But another thought around that is since this is DLD and about forward thinking, the larger the organization, the more difficult is it to adapt to new realities. When I started my first companies, long time ago now, I had a hard time, as a young entrepreneur, respecting big corporations because they've just been so slow and so non-innovative. When I look how the world looks today, that changed a lot. Yeah, so I think the big corporations learned how to be agile and all these methods, and they changed, they adapted. But now the next level, the governments, they did not. Yeah, so this is a wake-up call, and whoever is drafting the budgets here for regulation, just when you have your yearly budget, just add a 0. Yeah, make it 10x, because of this is what allows you to be competitive, and I see this in I see this in aviation, where there is a competition. Like someone mentioned Dubai. Dubai will compete with Singapore, who has the first flying car, and this and that. But those things are complex, yeah? So it's not like that the bureaucracy is slow or whatever, but like it requires resources, yeah? And it requires commitment, and yeah. And we're always lagging behind. So governments, they should have realized by now that like the pace of innovation is just not the same that it has been 50, 60 years ago. It's 10x, so you also need to 10x your resources on that. You can't have like small consumer drones flying up and then like start, oh, the things are flying, what are the rules, right? No. Now same with micromobility, you know, so like the pattern repeats itself. So again, 10x regulations budget, please, ASAP, and then we work together and make the best kick-ass regulation and bring happiness, peace, a lot of love to our citizens.
Let's clap for that. Lukasz, on that point, I mean, you have been running, larger companies recently, like Delivery Hero, and I guess Flash and Bird also growing, so fast. It's going to be large very soon. How do you make sure, team-wise, how you structure this partnership so in every European geography that you're operating, there are, able people who are, collaborating with the local governments and municipalities properly as well? What's the secret sauce to do that?
Secret sauce. So it starts with the sharing economy. Yeah. So it's about sharing economy, but also like a company has a cap table in their shares, so you give them some shares. That's a good idea.
So sharing economy means to share your company with your employees. As simple as that.
Just one to single out one thing. Yeah. But like and then I don't know. Like just I think it's I mean. It's about culture. Yeah? It's about like having like a strong culture in your company, and then all of us know like when we see like again like going to corporations, some of them are better than others, and some consistently outperform. And why they do so? Because of like they, for whatever reason, they have a strong culture and they work consciously and they invest in a strong culture. And like in that sense, also being long term. So yes, we have this land grab market and it's so exciting, and it's like, but it's a really long term game. Yeah? And for all of our team, no, we're not built to flip or anything. We're building something that is hopefully large and sustainable and will be, yeah.
That is very encouraging what you're saying. And Patrick, you also have been, an executive in Uber and have, participated in the tremendous expansion of this company over Europe. What have you learned from that, and how are you maybe doing it differently or similarly in Bird?
Yeah, I think ultimately a company is only as strong and as great as the people in it. So I think for me, the thing that's been sort of consistent through all the companies I've ever worked at is, spend a lot of time early on recruiting, just amazing people and building amazing teams. Now, as we go into more and more countries, hopefully those amazing teams, for me, some of whom are here today in the audience, are going to work in Germany with the cities in Germany, and in France with the cities in France, and work together with the cities. I think what we've seen over time is there is just no way that if you're operating a service in a city that you can do that without having a great and open relationship with that city. So, for us, as we've been going into new cities around Europe, we spend a lot of time up front talking with the cities, also understanding where are the transportation pain points in those cities, because as said, like the nice thing about our solution with the scooters is it's a floating solution, and transportation is ultimately a floating problem. So having a solution that can follow sort of the problem around is great. I think when I was in Tel Aviv a few months ago, one of the city planners there said there's an expression in Hebrew which is don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem, and then you can keep sort of following the problem around. And I think that's what we're all trying to do, and that works really well if you work together with the cities.
Makes sense. So trying to recap: fall in love with the cities.
Yeah.
Right. Share the economy. Share your company with the employees, and then if the government gonna create the right plan and also would add few zeros on their policies, then we all would be doing great in micromobility, riding scooters and flying cars occasionally.
Yeah.
Fair summary? Thank you, guys.
Summary.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lukasz.
Thank you.